He almost didn't answer it. It was past 9 on a Tuesday night in late November. The temperature outside had dropped to 19 degrees, and wildlife biologist Grant Hollis had been alone in his research cabin on the eastern slope of the Sierra Nevada for 11 days. Nobody knew this road. Nobody drove it after dark. So when the knock came, soft, deliberate, 3 slow taps on the wooden front door, his first thought was that a branch had fallen from the roof pine. Then it came again. Grant set down his coffee, crossed the room in 4 steps, and opened the door. What he saw on that porch would change the course of his career, get studied by wildlife researchers across 3 universities, and remind every person who eventually saw the footage that nature, in its most desperate moments, reaches towards the only thing it can find, even if that thing is us. Standing in the pale gold spill of his porch light, in the blue-dark cold of a Sierra Nevada night, was a mountain lion, full-grown, female, and in her mouth, held with the impossible gentleness that only a mother manages, was her cub. She set the cub down at Grant's feet, looked up at him, and did not run. Grant Hollis was 41 years old, lean and weathered in the way of men who spend more months outdoors than in, with gray beginning to thread through dark brown hair, and the kind of eyes that had learned to move slowly around wild animals. He had studied mountain lions for 14 years. He had tracked them, tagged them, followed their prints in snow for miles. He had never, in 14 years, had one come to him. He did not move. He did not speak. He stood in his doorway and looked down at the cub. The animal was small, he estimated 6 to 8 weeks old, and its condition was immediately alarming. Its rear left leg was fractured in 2 places, a fall, almost certainly, probably from a rock ledge. The dilation asymmetry suggested a head impact as well. The cub had a fever. In the wild, without intervention, this cub had maybe 48 hours. Nora looked up at Grant. He nodded. They worked carefully, efficiently, speaking only what was necessary. The mother paced the edge of the porch throughout, never charging, never retreating, her amber eyes tracking every movement Nora's hands made over her cub. When Nora administered the first stabilizing injection and the cub cried out once, a thin, broken sound, the mother went absolutely still and made a low vocalization that Grant later described as the most heartbreaking sound he had ever heard in a forest. They transported the cub to Nora's mobile unit. The mother followed to the base of the porch steps and stopped. She watched the vehicle. She did not leave the property until after 2 in the morning, when Grant finally saw her outline move back into the tree line from his window. The cub, a male, who the team quietly called Ridgeback after the mountain he'd apparently fallen from, spent 19 days in the reserve's wildlife rehabilitation unit. Nora set the leg with a lightweight splint. The head trauma resolved without surgical intervention. His fever broke on day 4. By day 9, he was eating on his own. By day 15, he was attempting to climb the walls of his recovery enclosure, which Nora took as an excellent sign. On day 19, they carried him back up the mountain road to Grant's cabin in a transport carrier. Grant had set up 2 motion cameras at the tree line the week before, aimed at the porch. He and Nora stood back at a distance and opened the carrier. They didn't have to wait long. She came out of the trees 11 minutes after they set the carrier down, moving low and direct, not cautious. She already knew this porch. She already knew these people. She went straight to the carrier, pushed her face inside, and the sound she made, that low, rumbling chuff of recognition, carried all the way to where Grant and Nora stood watching in the dark. Ridgeback crawled out, unsteady on the healed leg but upright. He pressed his small head against his mother's face, and she began to groom him immediately, the way she must have done every day of his short life before the ledge took him from her. Grant had a camera in his hands. He didn't raise it. "Some things," he said, "you just watch." The investigation into how Ridgeback was injured led wildlife officials to document a series of illegal trail modifications in the Upper Ridge area. Unauthorized climbing routes had been cut into protected land, destabilizing sections of ledge that mountain lion families had navigated safely for generations. 2 men were identified as responsible for the unauthorized construction. They were cited, prosecuted, and fined under federal wilderness protection statutes. The routes were sealed, the ledge sections were assessed and stabilized by a conservation crew the following spring. Ridgeback was documented on motion camera 18 months later, full size, alone, moving through his own territory on the eastern ridge, healthy, sovereign, alive in a forest that almost took him. His mother had walked out of the dark and knocked on a stranger's door because she had nowhere else to go, and the stranger had opened it. That is not a small thing. That is not a coincidence. That is what happens when the wild and the human decide in one cold November moment to trust each other. If this story moved something in you, hit that like button now and subscribe. We tell stories like this every week, and you don't want to miss what comes next. Share this with someone who needs to believe the world still has moments like this in it. Thank you for being here.